Let's talk about BBC Women's Footballer of the Year. They seem to have managed to make a bit of a blunder here again, because they didn't have to give the award to this woman, Barbra Banda. We've got a clip, have we? Should we watch it? Go on then.
Hello, Barbara. Sorry to interrupt your team meeting, everyone, but Barbara, we just wanted to deliver a special award for you. You are the BBC Women's Footballer of the Year 2024! Congratulations!
There you go, mate. Now, I don't know if that's in I think she plays in the US, doesn't she?
Yeah, Orlando Pride.
So a lot of people saying that they shouldn't have given it to her because, technically speaking, she's not really a woman. I spoke to somebody from Sex Matters earlier on who said that the levels of testosterone that this individual has would suggest that he, I don't know whether it's he, she, it, is actually a woman, because women can't have that level of testosterone.
Well, funnily enough, when you go back to the African Cup of Nations, Barbra Banda and 4 other players didn't play because they had high levels of testosterone.
Yeah.
Now, Barbara is born at birth, assigned to be a woman at birth, raised a girl, raised a woman, has taken part in women's sports, girls' sports all her life, and then she gets this award, which she was nominated for, she was voted for. Yes, if the BBC's made a blunder there. And now, this morning, everyone wakes up and says, she's a bloke, she's a guy. I watched that video, that makes me feel a little bit sorry for her.
Right.
You know, it's not her problem the way she was born.
No, but it's a biological kind of a crick, I suppose, for want of a better word. It's something that happens to some people. The fact that, I was saying this to the woman from Sex Matters, the fact that many people who have this kind of particular sexual pattern of biology end up in professional sport is unusual, isn't it? Because in life you wouldn't meet so many of them, but yet a lot of them seem to be in professional sport, which might suggest to some people that they're making money out of it. Because they wouldn't be making money as a male footballer, but can do better as a female. The
thing is, a quick sex test could sort this out. Right. Whereas Barbra Banda and the other women who identify as women and feel and believe that they are women born and raised might not want to do this sex test.
But they've said they won't do it, haven't they?
They won't do it. Now, a quick sex test would sort this out.
Yeah.
But again, that goes against everything that they've been born and raised as, because the sex test says differently. And then what happens?
Right.
You know, you can watch that video and feel that Barbra Banda is accepted by the women around her, accepted by the coaches around her. She's flourished. She's an amazing athlete. I got to watch her at the World Cup, and she deserves to win this award because of everything that she's achieved so far. But if she is a biological male, then we have a bit of a problem here.
But then she can't be a Women's Footballer of the Year, can she?
And it's all the time now, Mike. And actually, you mentioned the number of athletes we're hearing about. It's been really brought to the forefront.
Well, we had the Olympics boxers, didn't we? The 2 boxers in the Olympics.
Barbra Banda played at the Olympics as well. Yeah. So that seemed to not get a mention
But
then.
again, those 2 boxers who were in the Olympics had previously been banned from other sporting events that they couldn't take part in.
Absolutely.
So there seems to be a bit of kind of inconsistency going on here.
Well, that's different federations. You know, African Cup of Nations, that federation said, well, you can't play unless you're going to take the sex test. But for now, you've got high levels rates of testosterone, and that's not classed as a normal woman or a woman in this sport if your levels are over that. Yeah. And again, she's come into other competitions. She's flourished. She's played. Now she's been identified and called a man by so many. So it's kind of, she's damned if she does, she's damned if she doesn't. If she takes the sex test, I guess she's looking and going, well, now it's going to class me as a male, and that's not who I believe I am.
Well, also, that would be the end of her career.
Absolutely. I mean, she's not going to be accepted in males football, is she? And that's the thing. We had this conversation. I think there's a number of people, and in my opinion, Mike, who are mistaking the irregularity, sorry, you're born with at birth, to transphobia. You know, they're very different things. Last week we've got Jean Hatchett off on a rampage about the Lionesses having to speak up for trans women at grass level football, grassroots level. You know, it now does feel that we can't talk about women's football and enjoy that for what it is sometimes, but now there's the element of trans or, you know, gender eligibility in women's sport. And it's a small percentage.
It is a very small percentage, but interestingly, there's a lot. The percentage goes up immediately when you get into women's sport, and a lot of women would say you shouldn't be in women's sport because you're not playing fair.
Sports in the world, of all of the sports in the world, it's something like 43 athletes.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
No,
That's
but it's a
nothing.
bigger percentage than it is of all the people in the world, though, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
That's
but if you go to grassroots level of football,
Yeah.
what's that, millions? Something like 70 could be trans.
Yeah.
So we pick on them?
Well, I don't know about picking on them. Let's talk to Jane Sullivan, the sports coordinator of Women's Rights Network. I mean, J.K. Rowling last night said the BBC might as well have gone around and spat in women's faces as a result of doing this. Jane, very good morning to you. Where are you on this then, Jane?
Well, we're very much from the view that every single elite athlete should be sex tested if they want to be in the female category, and that no males should be allowed in the female category, whether they've had the unfortunate, thing of being born with a difference of sexual development, or whether they are what used to be called a masquerading male, but a trans male coming into the women's game. So, we want all males, however they come to the game, to be out of the female game. And you mentioned that Barbra Banda played football at the Olympics. Well, so did several other footballers suspected to have a similar condition. This could be sorted out overnight if the International Olympic Committee and FIFA had introduced sex testing. It's ironic that the Confederation of African Football has sex testing, which is why these individuals didn't play at the African Women's Cup of Nations, because either they didn't take the test because they knew what was going to be the result, or they took the test and found, and were shown to have XY chromosomes, which means they are male. A lot has been talked about Barbra Banda's elevated testosterone levels. Well, a female only has elevated testosterone levels that are out of the range of the female range if they're seriously ill with some condition that makes them produce too much testosterone, in which case they'd be too ill to play football. If they're doping, in which case they're cheating and they shouldn't be in the game anyway, or if they're male. So which one of those three would this footballer come into? Well, we highly suspect that it's because this footballer is male and they shouldn't be in the game.
Well, Shebahn would say, I suppose, from talkSPORT, if you don't mind me speaking for you, she would say, well, this woman Barbra Banda has, as far as she knows, lived as a woman, was born, she thought, as a woman, was kind of, assigned, I don't like using this phrase, assigned at birth as a woman. She hasn't sort of changed anything about her life in order to play women's football.
No, and it's really unfortunate for these babies that are born with this condition and at birth are assigned to female because they may look a bit different. And if you talk to a midwife, or most midwives who've ever seen babies like this, they say, well, there's something not quite right. In nations where there's a very advanced healthcare system, these babies would be picked up at birth, and the correct diagnosis would be made, and they would be put on a treatment pathway that's appropriate for their condition. If you could think going back 25 years to say the healthcare system in Africa at the time may not have been able to pick up these babies, and if a child is born at home, perhaps with a local midwife looking at this child and saying, well, she's a girl, and then that girl is, that person is raised as a girl, and it is unfortunate. But these conditions, the minute puberty hits, it is obvious that there is something different going on. These people don't have periods because they don't have a uterus. They don't grow breasts because they're not female. They often, their voices drop, they grow facial hair, and they muscle up in the way a boy would. So something's going on. They need to be picked up at that stage. However, the problem is that by this time, they've probably excelled in girls' sport. They've probably been scouted for a football team, because their extra muscle mass and their power and strength will be way beyond the girls. So they will be identified as talented athletes. That's where the trouble is.
Well, that would seem to be where the trouble is. Jane, thanks very much indeed. Jane Sullivan there, sports coordinator, Women's Rights Network. Shebahn, I mean, I guess it would have been all simpler if the BBC simply had given it to somebody else.
Yeah,
wouldn't it, at the end of the day?
If she hadn't been submitted into one of the standout women in women's football, which she was.
Yeah.
You know, I got to see that for myself. She's been absolutely outstanding. I feel for her in this situation. She's born and raised, and now she's been treated like this. It's kind of out with her hands.
Yeah.
But also, just to mention, with the African Cup of Nations, her and the other players who had to withdraw because they had high levels of testosterone, which means that would have been 4 African players going into that competition.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something else that has to be looked at there. Perhaps maybe these women do have higher levels of testosterone. That's something else that should be considered. But also they were offered testosterone blockers.
Yeah.
You know, take this. This will make it okay.
Right.
You know, they don't know enough about this. Look at Casta Semenya. She said it almost ruined her life. These hormone blockers. So there's a lot to consider here.
Yeah.
But today, I'm sorry if I'm not woke, and I can handle it, Mike. But I think today, when she's crucified for being a male by all these women's activists who have never stepped foot on the pitch, who have never been in elite level sports, I think sometimes it needs to calm down.
Yeah, maybe. I would crucify the BBC before I'd crucify her, because I think they could have made this life a lot simpler by just not doing it. But there we are. Shebahn, thank you very much indeed.